All right, everyone. All right, so welcome. I am Todd Bookspan. I'm the founder of Win by Noon, and I'm really excited that you are here because you said yes to someone who made the suggestion that you should show up and talk about your 2023 business plan. So I'm going to share a screen, but I'm going to keep my smiley face up here so you realize this is me and I'm doing this live. And we'll run through this conversation together. I'll turn off my screen every once in a while to keep us rolling, but I'm just going to tell you this is going to be fast. Like I'm going to say, just buckle up. I'm going to get rolling. The chat is open, so you can ask questions, and just know that this is going to take the full 60 minutes. I'll get a recording so you guys will have access to that if you want it, so you can rewatch it. That's what I find that people want to do, because when I get on a roll, I get on a roll. And so, like I said, I'm Todd Bookspan, and you're like, all right, who's this Todd guy? Why should I care to listen about him? But I am a lifelong learner, entrepreneur, been in the mortgage space for almost 25 years. But my background was in entrepreneurship, and as a student at the University of Arizona, just in case there's any Wildcats out there, I went through a program there called the Entrepreneurship Program as an undergraduate, and it was 30 some odd students. 1/3 of us were undergrad students. The other 2/3 were getting their MBA. I was a little bit bitter because they were getting credit for graduate school, doing the exact same work I was doing as an undergrad. And we spent a full year writing a business plan. It was like this thick. That's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about big, thick business plans, but I had a business plan that put out there, had a business plan competition, had some really well-known national entrepreneurs that were our judges. And so I had this business planning background even then. And when I got into the mortgage business, how I actually built my relationships was by helping real estate agents plan. And I've always done quarterly planning, and I've always believed that if you are committed to creating a plan, then it was worth it for me to help hold you accountable and help you get through the plan. And so, again, I'm excited that you have a rock star loan officer who said, hey, jump on here, and then I'm going to twist your arm to hold them accountable, to hold you accountable, because nobody wants accountability, but we all need it. And so I've been for almost 25 years now. I would say probably, let's call it 22, 23 of those 25 years. I've been every year teaching, typically live in front of a room, real estate agents, either at title companies or at brokerages, how to business plan. And so I'm super passionate about it. And you're going to hear stories that I tell because, for the last few years, I've been focused on the thing called Win by Noon. And in my world of Win by Noon, I've got about, I don't know, call it close to 1,300 real estate agents who are subscribers, and equal to slightly more than that on the loan officer side. So what I learn and what I teach is what I've learned along the way from talking to loan officers, from talking to real estate agents. And my goal is to have you find it valuable. So, all right. So after the webinar, you're going to download this business planning tool. Okay. And so you don't need to do it now. I don't want you to get distracted by it, because I'm going to show you what it looks like. You're just going to go to winbynoon.com/business planning tool. So I keep things super simple in my life. So you'll go to winbynoon.com/business planning tool. It's free, and it's a quarterly tool, and we update it every single quarter. So when you put your name in there, it's going to shoot you out a link. So it may go in your spam. So look in your spam, and then that link, you'll just save that link to your computer. And in the future, every quarter, we put it up midway through the quarter. So we put up this one on around November 15th. We'll put up the next one around February 15th, but we'll put out a new quarterly plan so that you can transfer your data from the old plan to the new plan. Some people will actually do two plans. They'll do the annual plan with this form, and then they'll do a quarterly version of it at the same time. Kind of cool. But this is your homework for afterwards. Again, winbynoon.com/business planning tool. And then those of you who get stuck or can't figure it out, just email me, todd@winbynoon.com. And so that's my goal will be to help you all out to get through this, because in the end, that is what it's all about. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to give it away. And so really today's plan is going to be why plan. It's going to be this business planning tool, an in-depth ideal week, because I feel like if I can help you design the week that you operate on, then you can connect the dots from where you are now, your current reality, to your goals, where you're trying to go. And I'll just talk for a minute about helping each other, since you are here with that person that's either smiling, sitting next to you, or on Zoom. People always ask me, do I need to be a Win by Noon user? Again, I'm not here to sell you Win by Noon. It's just a quarterly planner. And yes, you can track the activities we're going to talk about in a planner. You can do it on a piece of paper too. And so, certainly I'd love you to be a user. It's, $20 a month or $200 a year if you subscribe. But that's not my point. My point really is to help you all business plan That was my big sales pitch, by the way. That was it. All right. So why plan? I always got to start here. And I call this kind of poking you in the side. Like you have to think about this. You're here, so you kind of know why to plan. But I learned early on when it comes to the psychology of this whole idea of planning is I've got to remind you, and it's got to sting just a little bit, right? I've talked to 104 real estate agents over the last 2 weeks. Why do I know that? Because I record the activities I do, and I keep track of the results. So I know who I talk to, and sounds like y'all have been not having the best year necessarily of your career. So I don't want to rub that part in, but you know what? Loan officers haven't been having the best career year either, right? Most people were crushing it through mid-year, and then most markets have shifted. And maybe you're lucky and you're in a market that's not like I hung out with a couple of realtors at a mastermind last week. I was in a room with over 100 realtors in there, and these guys were from New Jersey. And apparently, if you live in their part of New Jersey, they don't have any inventory still, and stuff is still selling. Stuff's still selling pretty good, selling pretty fast. So, and so really, like I said, I really am doing to push you to do what it is we're talking about, because it's one thing to be here. And then the difficult part is getting people to take action, right? We all know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Now, I talked to a realtor yesterday. She's not here. Why? Because I didn't invite her. I didn't invite her because she told me, I said, well, what's your plan? She goes, I'm going to do the same plan I've been doing every year. And she had just told me how her business died in April and has not picked up since then. And I said, oh, awesome. Is it a written plan? Oh, no, it's in my head. And I'm like, all right, well, again, she was not open for any feedback and open for any guidance to get her through a process. So I said, awesome. Hey, I wish you the best of luck. And then in my head, I was thinking, right, if you saw that little bubble you see in cartoons, it's thinking, okay, definition of insanity, you're going to have the same mediocre year you had this year because you're going to do the same thing that you did this year that didn't work for you since April. And so what I find is that 94% of people in sales, this is from the Statmore Group, 94% of people in sales arrive to their office every day with no plan. And therefore 91% have inconsistent month over month business. That's this whole roller coaster thing that we all see. You've had it, right? Where you close 2 transactions one month, you work really hard to get those transactions closed. And then the next month you're like, oh shoot, I didn't do my lead generation activities. I only have 1 or none transactions closing. And then you work really hard on those lead generating activities. And then you get transactions going and you work on those the next month to make sure you get them closed. And then all of a sudden there's no business or lower business, right? And so my goal is to help you all figure out with this plan that you're going to create for yourself, how to actually connect those dots, right? And so when people walk into the office without a plan, you're really walking around waiting for fires, right? And now it's a little bit of a weird quote. When I say office here, imagine you could be like me working in the home office. This is my daughters who live out of town. This is their bedroom that I'm working in today. Because I had a meeting near my house this morning. I thought to myself, I could drive to the office or I could just do it at home where it would be a whole lot easier. And, there's dogs out there and family and they're all doing their thing. They're going to ignore me. But it's wherever you wake up, wherever you choose that you're going to do your work today. Are you actually being proactive with activities or are you being reactive looking for a fire to put out, right? And so, of course, the hint is the ideal week is the solution. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And so those of you who've never seen me before, my philosophy is to work smarter, not harder. Now, I'm going to look for a better analogy next year because transparently, I'm tired of the analogy I'm going to use. But every time I teach it live in a room, people laugh and people are like, oh my gosh, that is so true. Because I believe this whole idea of keeping it simple, right? We've all seen that before. And so the analogy I always give, and this is the story that I'm tired of telling, but it's still the best story I found. NASA, back in the 60s, John F. Kennedy, JFK is like, hey, we're going to the moon, right? Like he made this as a thing that before the end of the decade, we, US, were going to put somebody on the moon. And one of the things that when he made this big thing and they funded NASA, they said we have to have a pen that can write right side up, upside down, in extreme heat, extreme cold, and in gravity, and also with no gravity. And so they actually did this pen. And then, again, if we're live here, we're like, hey, how much do you think they spent on this pen? They spent over $1 million on this pen, right? And like in today's dollars, like people say it's $10 million that they spent on making this space pen that would write upside down, right side up. And guess what? You can buy it on Amazon for like $4 now or something. Now this, I don't speak Russian, maybe you do, but this says whatever their version of NASA is in Russian. And so at the time we were racing against Russia, who had put someone in orbit before the US space program did. And guess what? They had the same problem. They needed to have the ability to write in upside down, right side up, extreme heat, extreme cold, gravity, no gravity. But they didn't have this big budget that America had. So what they did was they used a pencil. right? And so again, I want you all to be thinking as we go through this, pencil, not pen. I'm trying to break this down. Now, there's a little bit of a pen part here. So when I get to the pen part, I'll tell you, you can ignore this pen part. Like that's going to be for those of you who want to take it to the next level. But I don't want this to be a conversation around taking it to the next level. I want this to be like, hey, how do we lower the barrier to make it so that this is something that you can just crush, right? That you can go design yourself and then feel like, hey, I can crush 2023 if I choose to do so. And so when we're planning, we've got to start with the past, right? We're going to look back at this year, 2022, and we're going to use that as our baseline, right? And some of you are going to say, hey, Todd, you were wrong before. You said my 2022 wasn't great and I crushed it. Awesome, right? I talked to someone yesterday and he's like, yes, this year's my third best year ever. He said last year was his best year, 2021, and this is his third best year ever. Awesome. Like I was super excited for him. He was pleased with that result. And, you know, as long as you have a result you're pleased with, then I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader, right? I'm going to cheer alongside of you. I don't think any of this is one size fits all. So I'm not gonna be like, hey, you know, everyone should do, 50 transactions or you need to do 100 transactions. I want you to look at your past and decide, hey, is this the life I want? Is this how hard I want to work? What is that I need to do if I want to move forward to hit my goal for this year? So we're going to start looking at our results because results are the easiest thing for everyone to look at. And I believe that success leaves clues, right? You've all heard that before. And so we got to look back at our own results and see what did our successes tell us about our business. Now, I'm going to be talking to both real estate agents and a little bit to loan officers here because your loan officer friend brought you here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our totals for 2022. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Todd, 2022 hasn't ended yet. But you know what? If you got a transaction that's closing between now and the end of the year, we're just going to assume it's going to close, right? We're going to assume it's going to close and you're going to add that to your numbers. And so you're going to be looking at what were my two most important things. How many families did I serve and how many homes did I sell, right? Dollar volume for homes did I sell, right? For loan officer here, you're going to look at family served as well. And then you're going to look at loan volume. And so again, think about these things. They kind of go hand in hand. Now, the third line for you, mainly I see people put income on there and you'll notice I don't have income on my business plan. I've gone back and forth. I said, oh, I'm going to make one this year that has income on it. And I'm just still torn on it because I don't want people to be driven by income, but I realize that that's underlying what draws a lot of us to design our goals. So I'll talk about how to put your income in there, but yes, you can put what your expected income is there if you want. And then personal goals for me, I record how many days of vacation did I take where I was unplugged. So that's kind of, something that I'm putting in there. But most of the time I see when people are looking back here, they're not looking at their personal goals. I got other friends who are like, oh, I went to 14 concerts. My goal is to go to, at least 10 every year, whatever that is. If there's something else that you measured this past year, personally, great, put it on there for personal goals. And so again, you're only going to be able to set goals for what you have data for. Now you also can give your best estimate on data. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know that you all can go to your broker and you can ask your broker, hey, you broker, can I please see what my totals were for the year? Okay, you closed 24 transactions and, it was, $7.5 million or whatever that number comes out to. That's great. That's what we're looking at. And the reason it's going to be on the top of the business planning tool because our baseline for where we were. And then we're going to make our decisions for 2023 based on what we think about our year this year. And, you can say, well, but every year is different, Todd, because every year has different vibes and economies and recessions. And, we had no inventory and then we had inventory and then we had, low rates and then we had high rates. That's okay, right? You can take all that into consideration when you do it. But in the end, you still have a feeling about how I did this year. Like I did great this year. I'm really satisfied with it. I met with my own team this morning. I don't produce anymore, but I still have a team. And I met with them this morning. I said, hey guys, congrats. Like we hit the goal. But the underlying piece was, I said, you guys hit the goal 75% of the way. You got 75% of the goal in the first 6 months of the year. And then you did a third of the business in the second half of the year, more or less. And I'm like, ouch, that doesn't feel very good. And they all see it because they see it on their paychecks, right? And so you got to look at what do you have data for? And again, you might have to give it your best guess. And so again, if you're a loan officer watching this, you are going to look at your closed transaction unit dollar volume. And then you're going to look also at what other things led to that. So pre-qualifications issued, applications that you took, and then leads. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on you loan officers because I'm really talking to the realtors, but I just want to throw it out there. Real estate agents, again, closed transactions, unit volume you're going to get from your broker, right? Super easy. And then I think also the other results that you get on the result side is listing appointments and buyer appointments and leads. And so where would you find listing appointments, buyer appointments, and leads if you didn't have a way that you were tracking that during the year. Leads, I think, should be in your CRM. It may just be on a notepad. Great. Go back to your notepad and look at that. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. I don't really care what you use as a CRM, but again, it could be an Excel spreadsheet. That should be a bare minimum standard, I would like to say, right? I'll throw a few things out there and not try to sound like a jerk, but I would love it if you would absolutely be focused on recording, tracking these things, and then recording the activities in a minute. And then buyer and appointments and listing appointments. Again, you're looking at what's my conversion rate in each of these stages. And this may or may not be important to you. If it's not important to you, then don't track it. But I would think you could look in your phone and you could literally go through your calendar in your phone. It would take you 10, 15 minutes, but I think it's worth investing the time to see, okay, how many, okay, I met with the Jones here, I met with the Smiths here, and look at that. Because again, we're trying to connect the dots between the front end of it being a lead in this case, and then I met with them. I got the listing appointment. So I got 10 leads this last year. I got, on the listing side, I got 8 listing appointments and I listed and sold 4 homes. You're just looking at what that is, because then we can reverse engineer. If you want to double your business, then you probably need to double your leads, right? We're going to reverse engineer what that looks like by using math and data to get there, right? We also have personal goals. People are like, why would you set personal goals? And I think it's because relationships matter, right? Life is more than just about money, right? And again, I would tell you this. For me, early in my career, money driven. Me now, not so much. Now more legacy and helping others driven. But ultimately, you got to figure out what's important to you. But I'm never, ever going to not talk about what's important to you personally, right? This life balance thing to me is not a real thing, right? You're either going overboard typically or just kicking back. But just kind of keep that in mind as we go through it. I'm not really talking about the perfect life and the perfect balance. I just know, as someone who's been a life planner and a business planner now for more than 2 decades, that that's not possible. But I do know that I can be intentional around the things that are important to me personally and for my family. And I can be intentionally around my business life. And therefore, when I'm doing business, I'm all in on business. When I'm doing life, I can be all in on life. So the next section here is thoughts, adjustments, and changes for 2023. Now, this is where, again, you're going to sit down and you're going to think about it. So if I was teaching this to you at a title company or in your real estate office, and I'd be like, awesome, hey, let's take a couple of minutes now and let's do this. So even if you don't have your data with you, I could have you just sit here and do this. Okay, you know what? I crushed it through here. This is what worked for me. This is what didn't work, right? Think, keep, improve, start, stop here, right? Like, these are the things I want to keep doing. These are the things I was doing, but I think I could do better. These are the things I hear all these other people doing that I wish I was doing. I'm going to start doing that. And then what is it that you need to stop doing? Whoops, Amazon's here. I don't know if you can hear my dogs barking or not, but that's just the joy of coaching from home. So keep, improve, start, stop. Like, what is it that I'm doing right now that's just not having the results that I want, right? I talked to a lot of realtors who said, oh, I was doing this lead generation thing that's not working anymore, but they were spending money on it. Or, there's just something, probably in that case. For me personally, it was, what are we spending money on as a team that's not getting us the results, the ROI that we want? And then we're going to start looking at next year now, right? Okay, just based on that, what do you want to do for next year, right? Do you want to, I'm sorry, distracted now, UPS man's going next door. Do you want to, so you did 24 transactions last year, you did 2 a month. Like, how was that for you? Like, did that feel good? Is that what you want to do again? Maybe you really want to do 36. And so now you want to actually increase your business 50% for next year. Awesome. This is your time to set what you think that goal should look like. And so again, think about these numbers, and this is where we're going to put them on there, right? So again, your real estate version of it's going to say homes sold, right? It's going to be the number of homes you sold. And so when you think about goals, you think about smarts with an S on the end. You probably heard of a SMART goal before, right? Specific, right? It's got to be specific. You can't say, I'm going to lose weight. You're going to say, I'm going to lose 15 pounds, right? It's got to be measurable, right? 15 pounds. It's going to be specific and measurable. So again, we're talking about increasing our volume, increasing our income. Could be hiring an assistant. So some of it's not necessarily measurable in that same way, but that would be a business thing. Like, I'm going to hire an assistant. It's on my to-do list. Achievable, right? Again, if I closed 24 transactions this last year, I'm not going to say I'm going to close 2,400 next year. Probably not achievable, and probably may lead to some frustration. Relevant. It's got to be relevant to you, right? Again, I'm not going to pick, that my goal is to, whatever, learn to dunk a basketball. That's not relevant to my career of things I'm talking about in this plan. Time sensitive. by when. That's why we're going to cut this into quarterly chunks, right? If I pick something to be done 12/31/2023, that is really hard for me to stay focused on. But if I can take it into a quarterly bite-sized chunk and then take the quarterly one and go to monthly, and then go to monthly, and I go to weekly, and I go to weekly, and I go, what do I need to do today? Like if I'm going to hit my goal next year, what do I need to do today to get there? And then this last piece, stretch yourself just a little bit, right? What I find is some people are like, oh, I'm going to set the goal again for 24 next year, even though I know I'm going to crush that, right? I'm really going to do 36, but I want to feel good about hitting my goal. I'd say, come on, like stretch it a little bit. Let's say 30, maybe your real goal is 36. So maybe say, hey, I got a goal of 30 with a stretch goal of 36. So just think about that. I think you should push yourself just a wee bit. And then I think if you're the accountability partner, maybe just say, hey, are you sure you can't just get that up from 30 to 32, right? Why not, right? If you knew what the activities were, do you think you could do that? And like I said, we're going to go from annual to quarterly. And the reasons that we do that is because it's easier when you break it down. You all know that, right? The easiest way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? Terrible analogy. But, again, you got to think about these things and just know that for you to do it, you got to chunk it down, right? Let's if I think about what I have to do all of January, all of February, all of 2023, that's overwhelming. But if I look at what do I have to do today to be successful today, I can actually crush today. I truly can. I don't have to worry about tomorrow. I certainly can't change anything from yesterday, but I can crush today. Plus, this forces me with your accountability partner, right? Life is better when we do business and life with the people that we like. And that's why you are here. All right, so then we're going to have this thing right here, which is our Q1 goals, right? We're going to look at our family served and our production. And I would encourage you to put down a personal goal, right? And again, I already said it, weight's always the easiest one. I don't want that to be it. So for me, on the personal goals, I haven't done mine yet for next year, but having a personal assistant, I know is on my goal. I already had my coaching conversation this week with my coach. It's on top of my list. Normally for me, personal is number of days of vacation that I want, because you could call that assistant maybe a business goal. Again, personal for me is, executing my morning routine. I'll kind of show you a way that I'm going to track that in just a sec. All right, so that's just the result side of it. It starts to get harder after that. And this is the part where those of you who feel overwhelmed already, might just close your eyes and ears for a minute, but just think, okay, maybe in Q2, this is what I can aspire to. But I would just say, gosh, why not try to do this now, right? Again, we're going to try to keep it simple, because the ultimate goal to me, and I'd like to think maybe for you, you'll hear me out on this. So the ultimate goal is to figure out which activities and how many. Okay, let me say that again. Figure out which activities and how many. And anytime I talk to someone who's a true business planner and they tell me, oh, I know if I do this, I'll get this. So I don't want to scare anyone, but I was on this big Facebook Live with a couple hundred realtors last week. And the guy who was leading it, who I'd never met before, I didn't know where he was going to go. And they wanted me to do this business planning thing. And I didn't want to do this for him. I wanted to save my secret sauce for all of you. But what I did want to do is add value and talk about, what gets in people's ways and struggles. And this guy said to me, I know how many activities I put on my headset and I triple dial. And if I call 700 people in 2021, I got one closed transaction. I'm like, holy smokes, 700, you just scared the what out of me. And then he said, but in 2022, it's 900 people I have to dial in order to get one transaction. But the cool part is, though, is he knows when he puts on his dialer that if he wants to do one more transaction this year, he's just got to make sure that the dialer dials 900 people and he talks to however many conversations that comes up with. And then I know that if he wants to add an extra transaction or 2 extra transactions or 3 extra transactions, then he's got to actually do 2,700 calls to add 3 transactions. But if you know exactly what you have to do today or tomorrow and today, or tomorrow, today, and the next day combined, like maybe he does 300 a day. I didn't ask him. I didn't dig into the questions like I normally would, because that wasn't the format of the conversation. But, again, think about that. He just knows, maybe it's that he has to do, maybe he does that over 3 days. And now he says, okay, well, instead of doing 300, I'll do 400 each day. And then I added on for 3 days. I added on that one extra, I added on 300 extra calls. And if I do that now 3 times, right, the next 3 times over a 3-day period, then I'm going to actually add one more transaction on. So to me, I get geeked out because it's a numbers game, right? If I know which activities and how many to get to the end of the year, my goal at the end of the year, then that's what I'm going to do today. And so we're going to figure out which activities lead to the results that you want, right? Because I already said it, success leaves clues. And so I was at a conference and this realtor got up who's super successful, multimillionaire in his early 30s. And he wasn't trying to be a jerk, but he said to the room, do you know what activities you need to do every day? And he paused on that. every day. And he looked around the room at all the people and looked in their eyes. There were 60 realtors in the room. And he said, you know what you have to do every day to meet your goals? And then he went on and said, you know what, if I knock 40 doors, I'm going to get a transaction. If I call 20 of my bros, I'm going to get a referral, and then that's going to lead to a transaction. He knew exactly what his numbers were. And there's power in that if you can embrace that philosophy, that me getting crystal clear on what activities I need to do, right? Every day in order to reach your goals. And so that's part of what I want you to get out of this, is that I don't want you to get to the end of the year and be like the woman I mentioned and go, oh, I did the same plan, it didn't work, right? What I want you to be able to do is say, okay, you know what? My plan's not working. How do I course correct during the year? That's the reason we look at it every quarter. That's the reason you have an accountability partner, so that if you're off track, right? If it goes from needing to make 700 calls and to needing to make 900 calls, that you're not caught in figuring that out December 31st, that you figure it out if it slows down in April and the seasonality kicks in, or the economy kicks in, or something's changed in your market. Wouldn't you like to know in May that, hey, oh my gosh, I got to go from 700 to 900 if I'm going to hit my goal for the year? And so what I tend to find is the people who get, it's called surprise. The people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't hit my goal, are the people who were not watching the numbers during the year. And so that's the whole reason that we get busy and we don't. And that's the whole reason we get an accountability partner, because when we're busy and we may not, instead we're actually busy and we make the time for it. And so this will help you kind of connect those dots, right? You need to be intentional with the activities you choose to prioritize. And so the real key words here is that you choose, right? I'm not choosing for you. You're choosing for yourself to prioritize these activities, right? You have to be really intentional with it, right? It has to be something that you say, this is what I'm doing today, right? We all know the best day to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago, and the next best day is today. So the best time to start tracking your activities would have probably been January 1st of this last year, because then you'd have a little better data. But you know what? The next best day is to do it now. Guess what? You can get a week and a half, whatever you're going to plan on working, before Christmas, and you can start getting this going. Then in January, you'll get it going. And guess what? By midway through January, you'll start seeing, okay, this is what I called 10 people in my sphere, and I got one lead, and I got one lead, and I got one listing appointment, and I got one listing appointment. I got, one thing going, or maybe I did 3 listing appointments and I only got one going. And then you might say, okay, well, how can I improve that, right? You're looking for those areas where your conversion rates will tell you the secret sauce. It'll tell you, what do you have to improve on? What do you have to do more of? And then you're going along the way, and that way you're not surprised at the end of the year. I talked to a realtor last week, kind of broke my heart. She said, hey, I'm thinking about going, after 10 years in real estate, I'm thinking about going back into the medical field because I need a paycheck. Like, that breaks my heart. Like, I never want to hear that kind of thing, because I want people to be successful, right? I've heard so many people joke, this is where the rubber hits the road and all the realtors who never had a heart are going to get out of the business. Well, I don't want that. Like, I'm actually I'm the opposite of that. I want everyone that I know and care about to be in the business, because it's the greatest business in the world. And so just know that's where I'm coming at. So I want you to start recording your activities, and I want you to record them now. And so again, you'll see what those activities are on the tool when you print it out. I'll show them to you in a second, and then you can take those activities and you can just get a piece of paper and write down every day you're going to track that. Record that activity, track that result. And then you can determine the rest, right? Then you can course correct. You can figure out after a month, how am I doing? Right? You're going to get data. After 2 months, you'll have more data, and it's easier to see the path, right? The longer you do it, the better the data, the law of averages kick in, and it'll all work itself out. And so again, you're just going to start looking at what are your weekly results goal. Now, here's the problem, is that weekly results goals may not be applicable now. Like skip this part if you've never done anything beyond just closed and applications, or closed and listing appointments, right? Here's the real estate version of it. I think you can look at this. I think you can say, okay. And again, all you're going to do is take the number of weeks you're going to, take your annual goal, the number of weeks you want to work, and you divide by that. So let's pretend you're going to take 2 weeks of vacation. Let's pretend you want to do 50 transactions next year. You're going to divide it by there, and you say, gosh, my total close goal for each week is going to be 1. Okay. Again, we're not going to overthink this. Your total goal for most of you is probably going to be a fraction, right? So you might say 1 quarter. You might cross off where it says weekly. You might write monthly goals on there, because you're like, Todd, I can't do that division, but that's fine. However you want to do it, tools designed to work for you, right? And then you're going to make the activity commitments. Now, again, if you've never done this before, leave it blank. Okay. But those of you who have watched this, then start looking at this. How many lead calls did I make? How many client calls did I make? Right. And so kind of look at what are these things I'm going to commit to, right? You're going to call buyer leads and seller leads. You're going to call clients. You're going to call database. You're going to talk to people, quality conversations. Like, wouldn't it be nice to know how many people do you actually have to talk to in order to get a closed transaction, right? How many people have to talk to in order to get a buyer or listing presentation? And so ultimately in the end, it's a numbers game. The data is always going to leave clues, right? We talked about that. Success leaves clues, and activities matter, right? Because activities lead to results. And so that where most coaching programs and every coaching program out there, every coaching program, at least that I know of in business, is going to track results, right? Period. It's one of the reasons that Win by Noon is used by, lots of different coaching organizations out there, because it's a way for them to actually have something that's tangible to record those results in. And only some actually look at the activities to get there. And I think that's where the secret sauce is. Literally, I could tell you this year how much I made per phone call if I want to divide it out that way. I don't do that because I don't want to have a conversation with you, be all about the money. But I know people who do. But for me, I do know how many calls do I have to make in order to get the result that I'm after. Okay. Now I mentioned before personal stuff, habits of success. On time is working on your business, handwritten notes. Again, these are all things that you may choose to track or not track, right? I'm really specific on these things, right? Exercise. Mine says walk, hike or run 5 days a week, right? I could be more specific, but mine is always the same. It's in the morning with my wife, right? So for me, I don't need to say that, but could be exercise, 5 days a week at F45, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, that's only 4 days, but whatever those numbers were, like I used to do that. So I would put in there, but I'm really specific about it because specificity matters, because the more specific I am, the easier it is to hold myself accountable. Morning and evening routine, right? Mine are all really specific. It's going to say, right, wake up, meditate, read something spiritual, read something for personal growth, stretch, and then exercise, and it points back up there, right? So these are all things that matter. And then, do you want a new habit or not? And that's just, I think life is more than just business. I feel like those who I know who are super disciplined in their personal life, it tends to spill over into their business life and vice versa. There's also this thing on their critical relationships. Again, if you don't have any critical relationships, skip it, something to add them through in here. I love it, right? So for me, it says, I don't just say family, it says mom, dad, right? Neil, Greg, my parents and my brothers. It says my girls, right? My wife and my 3 kids. It's got their names written on there. It's got my team members who are important. And it's got the other critical relationships that I'm trying to build and grow in this coming quarter. So for me, it's been something that I kind of laughed when I first saw it, but I actually really dig. Now, here's one of the challenges that I oftentimes suffer from, and maybe you do too, SOS, shiny object syndrome, right? We're all easily distracted, right? That's the challenge. And so one of the things I put on here is just an idea list. You call this a brain dump list. And so for me, the quarter ahead idea list is everything that gets told to me. So like I had a meeting with a leader in the real estate space last week, and there was 2 things he mentioned that I'd never heard of, that he said, oh, you should take a look at these things. There were 2 companies. One was a tech company, one was a real estate company. Again, I'm not a realtor. I'm never going to work for him, but I still wrote them on my idea list as something to look at, because he thought there was something I could learn from it. And so idea list is my parking spot to get this information out of my brain, right? David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done, he says, you want to have a mind like water. You don't want to have to think twice about everything else. And so rather than me try to say, okay, remember that company, remember that company, remember that company, I write it and then I put it in my idea list. And so my idea list is something that I visit typically on a weekly basis, sometimes maybe, twice a month, but it's those ideas that I just want to park somewhere to think about. So rather than have shiny object syndrome and go out, spend money or commit my time to something, I just park it there until I got time to decide what's next on my list. And so ultimately the whole idea is to look for, what could be helpful, right? What could you do? Could you reduce something that takes too long, right? Can increase something in your business or add more value, right? These are kind of ideas that, things that make it to my idea list are those things that I want to do. It could actually be a place I want to go. Like I don't think my wife necessarily wants to go there, but I want to go to Bora Bora because I want to stay in one of those huts that's over the water. They look kind of cool. So that's on my idea list too. And, it gets moved from this quarter's idea list to next quarter's, could get moved from next quarter's to next quarter's until someday either I cross it off because it's no longer important, or I get that singing trip scheduled and we're off to Bora Bora. You might be looking for a way to streamline a system or a process, right? Just think about these things as you're kind of talking through it. And these are all things that you probably have thought of. Like for me, I used to just go buy it and then I'd be like, oh, I'll cancel it if I don't use it. I'm like, no, we're not buying anything, especially in this economy. Right? Maybe it's eliminating something. Like maybe it's an idea to review, like eliminate, like, okay, I got, 2 different CRMs for email. Let's get rid of one. Or I've got 2 different things for lead generation. Let's get rid of one. I've got this thing that I think is really good that I should get rid of. Right? Because again, this is what I see when I look in the mirror and I got shiny object syndrome. And so then the project list is the next part. So I always say, pick 1 to 3 projects. Don't overthink it, right? But the whole reason that this is on here is that project with a by when date, right? You got to have a by when. I'm normally looking at projects that complete this quarter. And then what are the steps to get there, right? And again, the reason I put these steps, it's not a complete project planning tool. There's plenty of great ones out there. But it's ultimately to think about what are the steps I need to get started? Because oftentimes when I ask someone, hey, have you had any great ideas this past year that you didn't execute on? And they say, yes. I say, well, what got in the way? They're like, well, I just didn't know where to start. So this is just forcing you to come up with what are the steps I need to do to start. And so if I kind of back up for a second, let's sort of talk about, let me just stop sharing for 1 second, and then this might make sense. So let's just sort of walk through. So here you are today, current reality, and now you just set a goal, right? And you back the goal down to a quarterly goal. And so we got to get from here to there. And there's two things that are going to get you from where you are to where you want to go. One is projects. Like, what are the projects I need to do? If I'm going to increase my business, I need a new lead generation system. If I'm going to increase my business, I need a drip email. If I'm going to increase my business, I need to get an 8x8 postcard campaign, right? So those are all projects. They take more than one step, and they're going to be done and then implemented into it as a system, right? So that's one piece. The other piece of it we'll talk about in a minute in the ideal week, which are disciplines. Like, what are the disciplines that I need to do weekly, daily, whatever that is, in order to make sure that I get from here to there, right? So I mentioned the guy who called, terrible idea, calls 900 people, right? So that's a discipline for him. It's a discipline. I didn't ask him on now. I'm going to follow up. I'm going to ask him because now I'm going to teach it next time. I'll know, does he do that every single day? Does he do it over 2 or 3 days? But he's got a discipline. So I know for him, his discipline is putting the headset on. He said, I do it every morning. And he's doing it for 2 hours in the morning. So he did say all that. I just don't know how fast that dialer gets through all those people, right? But that's a discipline, 2 hours a day. Guess what? It's on his calendar. Guess what? That's his ideal week, because it's a daily discipline that he does. And so again, two things, disciplines and projects. And so we got to have somewhere that we keep the ideas that become projects, because you can't do 10 things at once, because guess what? Then nothing gets done. And then we also have to, I kind of feel like I had too much coffee. I'm talking really fast, so I apologize. You guys can watch it again, and you can just slow down to 3/4 speed if I'm going too fast for you. But you're also smart. I don't have to worry about that. Bright minds can keep up with fast talkers. And so again, the whole point here is to get this project here so that you at least get thinking about it, so you can get it going, right? Now, I knew none of you thought, maybe 1 or 2 of you did. Like, now, if there's a bunch of, you young folks in the room, some of you are like, yeah, I wanted to be a realtor all along because I saw Chip and Joanna, I saw HGTV, I loved it. But no one typically thought about this. And so after the guy got up and said, you know what you have to do every day in order to reach your goals, another guy got up and he said, you got into the real estate business. And again, he's looking at everyone like, he's a jerk. You got in the real estate business to set your own hours, and that is the exact reason you fail. And again, he paused there for a minute. He let it sink in. So let me just do that again, right? You got into the real estate business, or you loan officers in the loan business, to set your own hours. And that is the exact reason you fail, right? Think about that. If it's not a discipline that you believe is going to drive the results you want, do you get up in the morning and say, you know what, I don't really feel like calling those 900 realtors today? Again, I've never called 900 people in a day. That would be the death of me. But let's pretend for you, it's calling 3 past clients a day, right? Maybe that's your discipline that you set up, that you realize if I call 3 people from my database every day, 3 people from my sphere, that's going to get me to the result I want at the end of the year. Because I know if I call 12 people in my sphere, then I'm going to get 1 lead. And if I get 1 lead, I'm so good at conversion, I'm going to get 1 closed, right? That could be you. And so you might know, hey, if I do that 3 a day, then I'm going to hit my goal at the end of the year. But the problem is, what if you get up and you just don't feel like it, right? That's a challenge, right? It's kind of this whole idea of chasing your tail. I already said that 94% of people show up with no plan for the day, or start their day with no plan. And so my belief is this: you need a committed schedule of activities, right? You've got to commit to a schedule of activities if you're going to call this a career, right? I think there's a big difference between a job and a career. I was in Venice Beach this summer for 9 weeks with my wife, and we were running. Okay, because I commit to do that. We're running on the boardwalk. We came right around the corner. We passed this restaurant. I know right where it was. And I heard this guy say, yeah, you know what? Is that a job or a career for you? He said, I'm always amazed how many people don't realize how many people treat their career like a job and they never grow. I literally heard this guy say it. They're carrying their skateboards. It was kind of funny, but I'm like, okay, that was freaking gold. But the difference is that if it's your career, you got to be really committed to it. Right. And so I like this whole idea of an ideal week. Like, write out what it is you're going to look at this week. What are you going to do? What does a best week in your business look like for you? And so there's this, it's the last page of the plan. And I just think it's really important. Every week I sit down and I fill out my week ahead. I do it for a couple of reasons. Number one is so I can make sure there's something on there that's not going to help me reach my goals that I want to cancel or move. Right. Did I say yes to something that I shouldn't have said yes to? The other thing that may be on there is maybe I'm missing some stuff. Like maybe I gotta, maybe I got something like, my kid's field trip, and then I'm not going to make that lead call day I was supposed to do. And then I've got to, add on an extra hour of lead call day to 3 other days to make up for the 3 hours I'm not going to do it. Like what else is out there? What gets in my way? But this is just a good visual for you to see what does your week look like? What do you have to do? And I truly believe this. If you own your week, you can own your business and your life. So I already said there's 2 types of activities. In fact, let me just real quick, let me rewind to something. It's killing me. My neighbor's blowing the leaves off his yard. I don't know that he has a job. So, but he's a super good dude. But I'm laughing. Luckily, there's not very many leaves, and he's blowing in my yard right now, but that's a whole nother story. See, look, there's a bird, like easily distracted. So let me just talk about this for 1 second, then I'm going to kind of blow through this whole ideal week thing pretty quick, because then you can go back and watch it, and you guys can all talk about it as part of your accountability. Again, in a live room, I would say, hey, who here worked at, again, people my age worked at McDonald's or Burger King. People, for you younger folks, you might have worked at Starbucks or somewhere even cooler than that. But the bottom line is, when you had those jobs, like when I worked at a bike shop. When I worked at the bike shop, when I was a bartender at an athletic club, but it wasn't like the cool kind of bartender. Like if I made a rum and Coke, that was really a big drink. Mostly it was serving Coors Light and Bud Light. But whenever I had those jobs, if I was an opener, I got there at a certain time. Like if I got there late, guess what? I was going to be fired, right? But if I get up now in my business and I don't actually start on time, who am I hurting? I'm only hurting myself, right? So same thing. If you say I'm going to start work at 10 o'clock every day, and this is what my day looks like, then you got to start work at 10 o'clock. Because if you're working at Starbucks and your job was start at 10 o'clock, you would get in there, and there would be certain things you had to do when you get in there. Might just be something as simple at 10 o'clock that you just got to punch yourself in the time clock, put on your apron, put on your hat, and then get out, wash your hands and get out there. But I know if you're the person who starts at Starbucks at 5 a.m., one is you got to be there at 5. You can't be there at 5:05 or 5:15 or decide you're going to work at 7 that day. Or maybe you're not even deciding you're not going to work at all. I'm just going to get distracted and go to the mall and buy Christmas presents. And then number 2 is you have a list of committed activities you have to do. You gotta take the chairs off the tables, right? The person last night had to sweep the floor. They had to put the chairs on the table and they swept the floor. So all you have to do is show up, take the chairs off tables. You've got to, grind the coffee. You got to, thaw out the bagels or whatever it is you got to do, but you have a listed committed activities. That's your job, right? And so when I think ideal week, I'm thinking this is your committed list of activities. Does that make sense? Just nod to yourself and say, yes, Todd, that makes sense, right? So I already told you have 2 types of activities, and I divide it into these daily disciplines. I said then you also have projects, but these are your activity side of things. And so these are all disciplines, but I divide them into daily disciplines. And then I divide them into target day activities, which means that they're done on a specific day and they're done every week. So it's still a discipline. It's just split up into what do I do every day? And what do I just do, today because it's Tuesday, right? And so again, here you are, you're over here on that, I'm pointing to it. Here you're over here at the globe, you're on the earth, and we want to get to Saturn. It looks like here, that's where your goals are. So what's going to bridge that gap for us? What's our rocket ship that's going to get us there? And it's these ideas that this is what my job is, and this is what I have to do in order to reach my goals. So let's just talk about daily disciplines. And again, we're going to talk about it for loan officers and real estate agents, because I want you all to keep each other accountable, right? I want you guys to keep each other accountable. And then this is a little redundant. That's why I go fast. Right? Every day, y'all need to call leads every single day, right? I don't need to bore you with it, but if you read the book, The Conversion Code, or saw the MIT study, you have to call leads at least 6 times. And then you're 90 to 94% likely to get a hold of them. And so we all know you should be calling leads every day, because you shouldn't call a lead today and then wait a week to call a lead, or wait till your referrer says, hey, did you ever get a hold of my buddy that wanted to buy a house? You got to call leads every day until you get a hold of the lead, right? You're also calling your sphere. I mean, there's not one real estate coach out there. There's not one real estate program that says a real estate agent shouldn't be calling their sphere, right? You got to call your database. And again, I don't care if you call 1 person a day. I don't care if you call 3 people a day. I don't care if you call for 30 minutes a day. Either it's a timed event or it's a numbers game. But what is it going to take for you to get there? Because I already told you that. What if you dialed for 30 minutes a day, every day, and you make sure that you contacted, say I'm going to call until I talk to 3 people. Well, you might call and talk to 3 people in 15 minutes, or you might take all 30 minutes and then say, I'm going to keep calling. I'll call for 30 minutes. I'll talk to 5, right? Every day that I could do more activity than what my minimum standard was, guess what? I was moving myself 1 step closer to my goals. I was also protecting myself from a slowing market, right? For me, before for a while, I had a committed number of 100 quality conversations a week. Well, guess what? If I had 120 quality conversations in a week, guess what? I was growing my business. And I was also protecting against if my business slowed down, if conversion rates change, if interest rates went up, if, the buyer, something happened with inventory and less buyers go under contract, you're protecting yourself by doing more. But at the same time, the week I only did 80 quality conversations, then I was also setting myself up knowing that either one of two things was going to happen. I was either already admitting I wasn't going to hit my goal, that it wasn't that important to me. I set the goal and it's either important enough that I'm going to do the activity to get there or not once I know the activity, or I was at to make up for the next week. Okay, if I only did 80 this week and my goal and my standard was 100, well, then I better do 120 next week, right? And so it's not fun. It's not easy, but guess what? It's a job. That's why I said if you showed up at Starbucks, they would be making you do these things. Loan officers, you got to call your loan applicants who you haven't gotten over the finish line, right? You realtors all know this. You got the self-employed borrower and your loan officer like, hey, can't get that tax return. I'm waiting for their tax return. Well, great. Loan officers bug the out of your clients every day until they get you what you need in order to get them across the finish line. Because just because they took the time to do the application doesn't mean that they're as committed as you think they are. You're going to get them out shopping with your favorite realtor friend faster if they've got that pre-qual letter in their hand that they can wave around. And then let's talk about target day activities, right? So you're going to pick a day of the week where you can do activities. Now, a couple things that happen when I talk about target day activities. Number one thing people say is, Todd, I already do that and I do it on Thursday, but you do it on Tuesday. Great. If you're doing it on Thursday consistently, then keep doing it on Thursday. If you do it on Thursday inconsistently, then the question is, why are you doing it inconsistently that day? Maybe if you did it on the day that I'm recommending or on a different day, would that help you? And then some of you are going to say, well, but Todd, you know what? I only have one transaction going at a time. Could I do those calls all in one day? Absolutely. You can stack these as long as you are committed to it. What I tend to find is that you're more efficient and more consistent, which I'll talk about in just a sec when you do these things. But I tend to find when I ask someone, do you do this consistently? They go from here to like they don't want to make eye contact anymore, right? Which tells me that they're not. So that's always what it comes down to is, are you doing it consistently? So this is like spirit days. So those of you who are younger, you had spirit days, you had crazy hair day, you had pajama day at school. I was too old, but my kids did have that. It was kind of cool. And so think about it like that. So this is going to make you more efficient and more consistent. You're more efficient because if you say, I'm going to call this one type of person. So today, my whole team who I met with this morning, they're making their update calls, which I'll talk about on Tuesdays in a second. But because they're doing the same thing every day, they all know they're going to do it. They're way more efficient because they're doing all the same thing and activity at one time. They're also more consistent because guess what? As soon as they tell a realtor, a client, a transaction coordinator that they're going to do this every Tuesday, well, they become consistent because the only way they're going to get the next referral, the next lead is if you do it every single Tuesday. Number one way to cut down inbound phone calls where you're being reactive is to be proactive and tell people when they can expect to hear from you. I've never heard a client say, I wish my realtor called me less. They've always said, I wish my realtor called me more, right? So on Mondays, you're going to all call leads, every one of you. In fact, you could all do this together. I spent 3 months in a real estate office dialing alongside of realtors for 3 hours a day. Was it painful? Sure it was. But guess what? I was freaking kicking butt. That was the year that I grew my business 45% in 1 year by committing to doing these activities by noon. Guess what? Win by noon. But the fact that I was more consistent in doing the activities I said I was going to do, and I did them consistently every day, my conversion rates went up in a year where interest rates stayed the same, where I didn't land any new big real estate teams, where I didn't land a builder, where housing didn't go like this, housing was flat, interest rates were flat. I increased my business 45%. Well, 44 point something or other percent, but rounded up to 45% because I was just consistent of doing these things every day. Calling leads, you're calling your sphere, you're calling a loan applicant who hasn't gotten across the finish line, a pre-qual issued or denied if you are a loan officer. Then Mondays, you're just going to review, right? I mean, again, especially you realtors, you have worked hard all weekend. You took out clients, you took out, you did an open house, whatever it was, but you're going to review. This is where you're going to count up your numbers from last week, right? Spend time, schedule time with yourself to say, how did I do last week? Oh crap, I was going to do 100 conversations. I only did 80. Okay, great. I'm going to do 120 this week. Hey, you know what? I crushed it. I said I was going to do 100, I did 110, right? Pat yourself on the back, right? High five from your accountability partner, right? These are important things. What didn't happen last week that I needed to happen? Oh, that client canceled the showings on Friday. Let me get them rescheduled, right? Like these are things you want to be thinking about doing, right? You're going to plan and commit, like, what do I got to get done this week? I said, I looked at it so I could see what I had going on and just make sure those were all really critical things that I still have to do, right? Oftentimes we say yes out of feeling like we need to say yes because we're in sales. And maybe we should say no, because it's not going to get us to our goal. Then we're just going to launch our week. Like, let's get crushed. Like, let's get that new transaction that you're negotiating into process, get over your transaction manager, do whatever you need to do in order to make that happen. Tuesday, same stinking daily disciplines, leads, sphere, loan applicants who haven't got across the finish line. And if you are a real estate agent, Tuesday, you're going to do your in escrow update calls. Again, you may be doing these randomly, but the minute you tell your client, I'm going to call you on this specific day, then the ground is set, right? Then I'm less likely to call you, right? Kurt, was that his name? Now I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I want to say it was Kurt Stinson, but I'm pretty sure it was. He was a realtor in Tucson, I knew. I remember when I sold my house and he said, hey, I'm going to have my assistant. He didn't even make the calls himself. My assistant is going to call you every Tuesday to let you know what happened with the showings over the weekend. Then I knew not even to call the realtor, to only call his assistant. B, I just waited around for him to do it versus calling him. Any showings today? Hey, what was the feedback? Cut down their inbound calls, because again, he didn't want to work. Clint didn't want to focus on going after the next person. What he wanted to focus, he didn't want to focus on the people he already caught in his net. He wanted to go after the next person. Loan officers, you're going to be doing loan status update calls, right? And so again, who and what are you going to do, right? You're going to call your clients. You're going to call your clients, give them an update. Hey, this is a Tuesday update call. You're going to script it that way, so they know it's not a different call. You're not calling for something different. I'm calling you with a Tuesday update call. And so even if they called you on Monday, guess what? You're still calling them on Tuesday with Tuesday update call, right? If you are a listing agent, you're going to call a buyer's agent. If you're a loan officer, you're going to call a buyer's agent. If you're a buyer representing the buyer, you're going to call the selling agent. You're going to give them an update, right? Why would you give them an update? Because they know what's going on. You're going to be the best agent they've ever worked with, because you've communicated with them more than anyone else. And they're going to say, gosh, you know what? I've got 3 offers, maybe not in this market, but maybe in the next market. I really liked working with Todd because he was proactive in his communication. So I'm going to tell my client they should take Todd's offer because he does such a great job, right? Transaction coordinators, update the transaction coordinators, because guess what? Especially if you're a loan officer, they know whose real estate deals are blowing up because the other loan officer is not doing a great job. And so again, what are you going to tell them? What's next? That's all they care about. Hey, guess what? I talked to the loan officer today. He said your loan officer he says your loan is in underwriting. We should have it next week. Hey, I scheduled that inspection on the roof. Hey, your appraisal is supposed to be in on Thursday. Just what's next? Because again, when people know what's next, then they don't need to call you, right? And then when that next thing happens, then you can call them midweek and say, congratulations, your appraisal came in. Wednesday, leads, sphere, applicants. What are you going to do on Wednesdays? You're going to protect your stinking pipeline. Right? Why? Because your clients have an internet addiction. Yeah, maybe you have one too. Again, real estate agent, who are you going to call? You're going to call your buyers and sellers who are not in escrow, right? So these are your pre-qualified buyers, your cash buyers. And these are your sellers who are wondering what's going on with their property, right? So could you do these if you're a realtor both in the same day? You can. But again, I'm just trying to give you just a little bit of a job every day. I don't want you to have to work 4 hours a day. I'm like, what if you can knock each of these things out in 30 minutes to an hour every day, build that consistency, build that schedule into your life, because guess what? This isn't a job, it's your career, right? Loan officers are going to call your pre-qualified clients, right? Because we don't want them falling into someone else's trap. So really, what are you going to say? Again, this is all boring. Rate market updates. You can say that, but sometimes it's important, right? Hey, the CPI came out, rates dropped today. Awesome, right? Hey, you know what? There's more inventory in your neighborhood, right? You're just giving them the information that they might want to hear, right? Loan program updates. Again, maybe something changed with their loan program, like the FHA loan limit that's about to go up after the first year, like the conforming conventional limits that are going up next year, but people are offering those now, right? Holiday calls are so stinking easy right now. When I talked to realtors yesterday, I asked them, hey, what are you doing for the holidays? And then I put it in my CRM, because my P brain doesn't hold that kind of stuff. And so guess what? I can call them after the holidays and I can say, awesome. Hey, how was skiing in Canada with your kids, right? These are all things I can ask them. They say, oh, I'm going to Disneyland this weekend. Awesome. How was Disneyland? When I call them next week or the week after, it doesn't matter when I call them, but remember what that is. You're building connection, because relationships matter. My favorite always is just checking in. Like, how you doing? Like, what's going on? How are you feeling about things? You know what? I shouldn't say this because you got your loan officer there next to you, but sometimes you might have to remind them who their lender is if it's the lender's not calling them, right? And then of course the other is true too, right? Sometimes loan officers have to remind who their agent is because their agents aren't doing these things consistently, right? And you're going to tell them what's next, right? That's what they want to hear. You're going to call people who are buying within 30 days every week. You're going to call people who are buying within 60 days every other week, and someone who's not going to buy for more than 60 days, you're going to call them every 3 to 4 weeks. And again, what I would say is when I did loans, I did it in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got a couple things coming up next year. We've got a big golf tournament. We've got an auto auction. We've got spring training. Oh, this year we got the Super Bowl. So people come in and they get pre-qualified because like, gosh, I'd love to buy an Airbnb. I just paid $1,000 a night. And then they call a realtor and they go through that process, get pre-qualified, and they don't buy a property. Well, guess what? I called them every 3 to 4 weeks to check in. Yeah, Todd, nope, still not coming back till September. Okay, cool. Have you heard from realtor? No, not since I told them I wasn't going to buy till next year. And so guess what? I was fighting for my realtors by making those calls. So that way, when they were coming back, I could say, hey, I don't know if you've talked to him lately. I wouldn't say I know you haven't. Hey, can you give them a call? They're going to be coming to town next month. And I think it'd be great for you guys to re-engage, because if not, I knew what would happen. They would go online, they would search properties. They go, let me ask the listing agent a button. And they think the listing agent's really the listing agent. And guess what? They get sucked into their funnel. And guess what? All of a sudden now that agent is showing my pre-qualified client properties. And guess what that listing agent has is another loan officer. And guess who it's not? It's not me. So now I'm competing for this loan that I could have had my agent and I both worked better together. And you're going to call them until they buy or die, right? Thursday, leads, sphere, applicant. I said it was going to get redundant, and it is redundant, right? This is really important. I want you guys to be paying attention on this. And again, what are you going to do? Real estate agents, because guess what? Your clients have an internet addiction. And they go online and they think this is the truth, right? Again, when I ask a room full of agents, hey, why do your clients go to Zillow? And they raise their hand, they say to look at properties. And I go, oh, awesome. And what else do they go there for? And they say to get this estimate. Awesome. Hey, who here thinks his estimate is accurate? And they all laugh, ha, 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 ha. I say, well, awesome. Well, if your client thinks that this estimate is the expert and they're going to the website and not you, who's the expert, you or them? They all get quiet and they all look down because no one wants to make eye contact with me. So again, what you need to be doing are real estate reviews, right? You need to think about it. Can I do a real estate review with you to tell you what your house is worth? Hey, gosh, I know the market is tough. I know last time I talked to you, I told you your house is worth 500,000. And unfortunately, that neighbor of yours just sold their house for 450. Hey, but don't worry. I know you're here for the long haul. I know you got that low 30-year fixed rate mortgage from our favorite loan officer, Jane. And I know that she's doing mortgage reviews to keep you updated. But, bottom line is no need to panic, right? So you're giving them these updates so that they're not looking at the internet for the expert, and they're not getting sucked into what their sales net, because then you're competing for your client. You want to be the expert adding value to them. If you're a loan officer, you're doing your partner calls, right? You're calling that real estate agent that you know and love, and you're doing this to protect your weekend. So now close your eyes for a second, realtors, because you're protecting your weekend. Because how many times has your favorite real estate agent called you and said, hey, I'm so sorry, the Smiths just showed up miraculously to look at houses this weekend from California, and I forgot to get a pre-qual. Can you get me one in the next 5 minutes so we can get an offer out? And you're walking to the movies with your family. And so if you can call them on Thursday, you can say, hey, what are you doing this weekend, right? It's on our little scripting thing, right? What are you doing this weekend? Then you're going to know what you have to do, right? You're going to know if they're taking out the Smith family and you've already pre-qualified them, to put on your planner on Monday that you're going to call the realtor and the Smith family to see what they did over the weekend. If they say, hey, I'm having an open house, guess what? You can then make them the flyers. If you make those flyers for open houses, if your company thinks that's legit, and then you can call them on Monday. Hey, how was the open house? Any leads that I need to follow up on? So you're protecting your weekend, right? Again, you're giving them client updates, right? What are your weekend plans? You're talking about these things because then you know what your actions are on Monday, right? Holiday calls, same thing, right? Awesome. Hey, what are you doing for Christmas? Same conversation you had with your client the other day, so you know what to follow up and say, right? Rate market updates, super boring, but you know what? Your partners need to know these things. If not, they're getting them off Facebook from that other loan officer who doesn't know what the heck he or she is talking about, right? Anything that may be important to them on a program update. And then the most important thing is just checking in, because this is your friend. You guys care about each other, especially those of you who are business planning together and building this relationship there. You're going to call your best relationships every week. You're going to call everyone else bi-weekly. And then even if they send you one transaction a year, you're going to call them every 3 to 4 weeks, because if you don't follow up with them, they won't follow up with you. And some people might say, well, Todd, why are you giving us the backstory on these loan officer stuff? Because again, I want you to hold your loan officer accountable. Your loan officer, she or he needs to do an amazing job for you. And this is the thing that I would expect a great loan officer to do. I would expect them to have a business. That's why you do business with them. So we hit Friday. We're going to call leads, sphere, loan applicants. What are we going to do? Just a weekly wrap up, right? I want for you realtors who work 7 days a week, I want this to be super easy for you, right? I don't want you to be overthinking it. You're just going to tie up loose ends. You're going to get prepared for the weekend, do your route, call those, confirm that those listings are available to go out there, get your open house ready if that's what you're doing, right? Loan officers, because your clients are internet addicted, you're going to do annual mortgage reviews, right? So I'm a huge proponent of that. You should be using that as part of your sales process. I'm not going to go into it now, but ultimately when you can tell a client you're going to proactively manage their loan, then guess who they're going to be relying on to proactively manage their loan? You. Again, if you don't follow up with them, they won't follow up with you. Annual mortgage reviews. I'm a big proponent of mortgage coach. I don't own any mortgage coach, but Dave Savage is the founder and CEO, is my buddy. So I always pitch that when I pitch annual mortgage reviews, because that's how I built my career. What about weekends? Oh, I'm sorry, you realtors, you work the hardest of anybody I know. And unfortunately, you're going to work on weekends, but I don't put anything that's in this ideal week onto weekends, because I want you to hopefully enjoy your weekend, or if that's when you're showing properties, which is most of the case, because your clients don't prioritize, hey, this is the most important purchase. Maybe I can take off, 3 hours early on Friday to look at houses as opposed to it on Saturday. So that's a whole nother conversation, not this class. So again, I said the bonus is helping each other. And so why am I telling you guys all these things about each other? Why am I telling you what a loan officer should do in a real estate agent class and vice versa? Because I want you all to help each other, right? We grow better together, right? And so, think about this, right? You're doing this to get buy-in, right? We're going to get buy-in from each other by planning with each other. And I think that you all should be okay with it. Now, realtor, your loan officer has more than just you as their referral source. If you did so much business that they didn't need anyone else, then that would be great. But unfortunately, you probably don't. And that's not a hit on you, but they care about you enough when they're the one who's business planning with you and not with 6,000 other realtors. And so we're doing this to get buy-in, to work with each other, to take our relationship to the next level. We're teaching it to each other. Again, the best way to actually execute on something is to teach it. So again, you're both teaching it back and forth to each other. You're going to help each other write it. You're going to go spend time to do this, right? And even if you write it on your own, then you're going to spend time going through each section and why you wrote it. And then you're going to agree on your accountability. What's that cadence of accountability? How often are we going to meet to talk about it? And what I would suggest is that you either do a weekly check-in on the phone and a monthly in person. I think a weekly in-person check-in is a little too much for most people to pull off consistently, right? But I think it should be, worst case should be bi-weekly check-in in a quarterly meeting in person. But I've always found that with my best relationships, me meeting with them once a month and checking with weekly was the standard. And guess what? I was already calling realtors on Thursday. So this was really easy to put that into my process. So just agree on that accountability, what the cadence is like, and hold each other to it, right? When you go to Hawaii on vacation, I hope you're doing that this year. I'm not, but I wish I was. Great. Then give each other a week off, right? And so really just kind of, other thoughts and ideas. And again, there's my email address, and look at that. I'm going to end it right on time. I guess the last things that I would say is, you sat through an hour, you invested time in yourself. You invested time and you got a friend or a partner in here. So take the next step, right? Go download the business planning tool, winbynoon.com/business planning tool, right? Do that next. Print it out. Call each other, say, holy crap, that was a lot. And schedule a time to work on it, right? Schedule a time on your calendar. When am I committed to work on it? When you do it, turn off your phone, stay plugged in, get the data together. And then just know, as you look into 2023, I'm going to be doing more plans on how to execute the plan. I'll do a plan on doing, someone said they love my bookshelf. Thank you. I love my bookshelf too. Great books on here too. So, but I'll do more. I'll do how to do a monthly review after the first month of the year. I'll do a quarterly review after the first quarter of the year. So just get plugged in. If you go to Facebook, there's a Win by Noon mastermind group. I'm happy to let y'all in there for free. You don't have to be a Win by Noon subscriber. Just say I did your business planning course. When I say, are you a subscriber? You can say no, business planning course. I'll let you in there. Love to have you as part of that community. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank you for inviting your realtor here. And then just know the best thing that you can do to repay me for doing this is to execute on it. Because in the end, my goal is not to sell you anything. My goal is to help you be the realtor that you want to be the parent that you want to be the friend that you want to be the friend that you want to be the business partner that you want to be the son or daughter, husband, wife that you want to be. Whatever that is, I want you to do it, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to determine what is your standard you're going to set, and you're going to figure out how to get from here to there by executing on those disciplines daily and weekly. And then also you're going to figure out what are the projects you need to get there. So thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all, and look forward to hearing your results.